Hi there, it's Ranjan Bhattacharya here. I'm with Paul Shamplina, who I've known for more than a decade actually. You've been
long time. I didn't have grey hair when we started.
long time ago.
Yeah.
And you're here tonight to speak at the Baker Street Property Meet and share some of your insights on the property industry.
Yeah.
You're obviously a TV star as well.
Yes,
Channel
I am.
5.
Yep. So the series is out tomorrow night. So Thursday nights at 8 o'clock on Channel 5. It's now called Bad Tenants, Rogue Landlords. We're now in the 4th series, and it's been a big hit. We're getting over 1 million people watching it. And
you also feature on the LBC Property Hour now and then as
that's right.
the resident expert phone-ins and all of that. You have had a lot of experience with the companies that you've set up in demystifying the process of getting problematic tenants out of the property. I guess previously solicitors used to make a meal out of it, but you turned it into a fixed price service, if
That's
you like.
right. So the reason we started, my background is legal. I became a landlord after I set up Landlord Action. I set Landlord Action up with my old partner because we were fed up with lawyers charging too much money. So we were the first company that offered fixed fees and a free advice line. And then really, that was in '99, and then the boom happened in 2003. And now we have now done between 35 to 40,000 cases. 5 years ago, we became a firm of solicitors and regulated. So we have a team of paralegals and solicitors, and we run about 500 cases at any one time, so a lot. And that we had some changes because as of July last year, we were purchased by Hamilton Fraser, and Hamilton Fraser co-own My Deposits with the deposit scheme with National Landlord Association. They're in the Property Redress Scheme, which is a redress scheme letting agents got to belong to, mandatory, and Total Landlord Insurance. So it was quite a good fit. Means that I've got a lot more resource now.
And because of your profile in the industry, obviously you get asked by government on various consultations on how the whole industry is moving. One of the things that is worrying a lot of people is all this stuff about confiscation of property.
Banning orders.
Banning orders. I mean, the councils can take away a property from a rogue landlord, but who is a rogue landlord?
Okay, well I can explain that because I sat in the consultation. Actually, I remember the very first meeting. I was with Arla, with NOWS, I was with the NLA. My idea was 3 strikes and you're out. Now, there's been a massive shift towards tenants, and that actually started with the Deregulation Act and Retaliation Eviction. And I'd never even heard of retaliation eviction. I've been in the industry for over 25 years. So it was about protecting the tenant to have a decent property. Now there's banning orders, and landlords could face fines up to £30,000. Now what they're doing is they are letting the councils keep that money to like penalty notices, which I think is a good idea because it means they should be putting that resource back in. Now, if you watch our TV show, it's Bad Tenants, Rogue Landlords, and they follow Harrow Council going after absolute nightmare landlords. I mean, we can't have people like that in the industry. Banning orders, banning orders are great, but actually they're only good if the public can actually view who's on that list, i.e. rogue letting agents that's stealing rents or causing loads of criminal activities, and also landlords that are serial offenders. And if you've got a landlord that's got a massive portfolio and they're in breach of overcrowding or dangerous wiring or breach of HMO licensing, which is really dangerous and serious offences. I mean, only 2 weeks ago, my office is now in Bournemouth. I'm based in North London. There was a lady who was a landlord in a property, and she was a solicitor property in Edgware, and 2 tenants died from carbon monoxide poisoning. So we need prosecutions. We need more prosecutions, and the good landlords won't be affected by this.
I think the problem that a lot of people, I mean, everyone wants the industry to be cleaned up and rogue landlords to be targeted and rooted out or forced to reform. The issue is that when the enforcement is incentivized through fines and the like, is that are good landlords punished for very minor indiscretions simply because someone showed up on a bad day?
Well, I think, you know what, as you know, I'm known in the industry as a landlord friends, and I'm always championing landlords. That's what I do. I've been doing that for years. A lot of the time, ignorance is not a defence. If landlord, all I can say, and I say this all the time, if you've got landlords, I mean, 90% of landlords out there, Ranjan, own one property. Let's be clear about that, okay? And most of the landlords don't see themselves as landlords. They're not professional. The game is changing. right? The landscape is changing. The PRS is now 20%. It's going to hit 25% in 5 years to 7 years. And population's growing, demand is strong. So there's money to be made in buy-to-let. You know, yields, you know, HMO yields are much higher. But if landlords don't know about the laws and they don't have the time because a lot of them are working, then you have to get an accredited, regulated letting agent, okay? And cheap can always be expensive, but you know what? I have a lot of landlords that will come to me. You know, we're running hundreds of cases, and I also do my other work with my deposits and obviously the property redress scheme, is landlords will go, oh, I'm only going to pay an agent let only. Well, actually, you can get a let only for 5-7%. And then, of course, you have to do due diligence on the letting agent, make sure they've got client money protection and so forth. But for an extra 3-4%, they can fully manage. Now, for me, that's a no-brainer. You know, if you're going to fully manage and you're building up your portfolio, well, then you need to make sure that you have your mechanisms in place and your software sorted and you have a right good bookkeeper and whatever. If you're busy, I mean, no landlord wants to take a call, and I say this, no landlord wants to take a call from their tenant that they're drunk and they've lost the keys at 6 in the morning, or their boiler's broken down at 3 in the morning. You know, so I would say always use a regulated letting agent that's got a good reputation and their terms of business. I can tell you now that councils are stretched like no end, okay? I think it's good that they can keep the money because they can invest it and then they can go after the rogues. They won't go round, you know, when I was giving evidence on the Deregulation Act about retaliation eviction where tenants can complain about disrepairs, actually, you know, it has to be pretty serious for an environmental health officer to serve an improvement notice on you and a hazardous notice. Generally, there's dialogue and they will give warnings. It's only when the rogue landlords ignore after various warnings that they are served notification. The good guys have got nothing to worry about, you know, if they're renting out good, safe, decent properties. But of course, the laws are now changing with regard to HMOs, where they're abolishing the 2 floors and actually say if you've got 5 separate tenants and two separate households, they are now going to be deemed as HMOs. You know, and I sat on that consultation. So I've never known so much legislation changes and consultations that have happened in the last 2 to 3 years.
Yes.
You know, and
it's every quarter there's something new.
It's every quarter, you know, and of course, the worst law that did come in was in 2008 when they made direct housing allowance or housing benefit to the tenant. That was a nightmare. And then, of course, what came in was Section 24 and the abolishment of mortgage interest relief. Now, we are having some landlords that are exiting the marketplace.
When you say some, is it a lot, do you
Well,
think?
no, we're having landlords. I mean, it's an amalgamation of a lot of things, Ranjam. So it's landlords thinking, well, I mean, it doesn't affect a lot of people. It affects some, and some people talk about an incorporation and so forth. But actually, if you incorporate a company, you've got to switch the mortgage over to a company. I mean, there's some big penalties that one has to pay. It's not simple, you know, and actually 20%, 40%, you know, some landlords are thinking it's really hard being a landlord. You know, if you think long term, it works if you get your systems right and you get your experience, and everyone makes mistakes. But we are having landlords that are saying, I'm getting shafted on the tax, enough's enough. My advice to them, if you can keep that property, keep it, you know, for the appreciation, but also because, well, you know what, I can't keep up with the legislation changes, or I've had bad experience with tenants. It's quite an amalgamation of a lot of things, but we are seeing landlords that have contacted us saying, I need vacant possession, I need to sell my property and break up my portfolio. We are getting that.
So they're coming to you because they've served, say they're looking to sell.
Yeah.
They have tried to serve notice on the tenants themselves.
Section 21, yeah.
And they haven't left.
The tenant hasn't left, and they come to us, and we're a regulated law firm. We do it for fixed fees, and then we get the court order, which can take up to 4 months getting a court and getting the bailiffs in. So yeah, we are seeing that. You know, definitely.
Now, of course, these days, of course, it's very critical that all your paperwork is in order to serve an effective Section 21 notice. You must have quite a few people come to you when they've done it wrong, and they realise they've done it wrong at the time they serve the notice. Yeah. I mean, what's their get out of jail?
Well, the biggest problem is they haven't protected the deposit within 30 days, and we're still getting landlords on our advice line.
I thought most people are doing that.
Well, we're still getting landlords on our advice line that have, one, not heard of the deposit scheme. It only came out 11 years ago, so God knows what's going to happen with right to rent and the Deregulation Act. And then we have to say you need to give the deposit back, and then you need to reserve the notice, right? And then, you know, I have a team of 9 lawyers and paralegals. In my office, you'll see files everywhere, and they do a thing called a check and review. Now, the thing's changed now because not only is the deposit have to be protected and the prescribed information needs to be served, if you've got an HMO, it has to be licensed, otherwise you can't serve a Section 21. And then, of course, any tenancies happened after the 1st of October 2015, you need to now make sure that there's a valid EPC served, a gas safety certificate, a how to rent guide, valid smoke alarms, carbon monoxide alarms. Once that's all done and you confirm you've done that, then you can serve a Section 21 notice.
Now, how would you recommend to people watching this that they prove that those documents were served at the time the tenancy was started?
Fine, well that's important. It's technically got to be done within 30 days. The problem you have is if you don't serve one of those things and you need to get access, getting access is a nightmare, and I put that in my evidence to loads of MPs at the time. And then, of course, I said that tenants could damage the property on purpose to say that the property's in a bad state. Now, what you need to do is once you serve all that stuff, get them to sign it and date it, and need be, if you're putting it for the letterbox, you take a picture with a newspaper, which will show the dates that you've served it. Just basically put your ducks in a row, dot your I's, cross your P's, T's, I said P's, T's, and then once that's done, then, you've got to realise that it's the last resort to serve a notice on your tenant. A happy tenant is a happy landlord.
Yes.
We, as landlords, if you don't have to sell and your circumstances change, you want the tenant staying as long as possible. So you don't need to serve a notice. That's why I came up with an idea, and it became a law that you shouldn't serve a Section 21 notice at the beginning of the tenancy, where a lot of landlords were doing it. Now you have to serve it after 4 months. I've got a really good pal of mine who's a massive landlord down in Brighton, and he's had a tenant in his property for something like 15 years. Reduces the rent, she refurbs the property, he's got no void periods, no reletting fees. He's happy, and that's generally what landlords want. It's only the smaller, the 90% of those landlords that they might have got divorced, they've got to sell the property, they need to move back in the property, there was a job move, circumstance change, and then, so then their circumstance change. Because, of course, the government are encouraging giving tenants longer tenancies, but they need to incentivise landlords to do that.
Yes. Well, we can go on talking all night about this sort of stuff.
Yes.
There are plenty more videos like this on our YouTube channel, interviews with all sorts of high-profile people in property. The best way to experience Baker Street Property Meet is to come to one of our monthly events, last Wednesday of every month. And you can get in touch with Paul. What's the website?
It's landlordaction.co.uk.
Landlordaction.co.uk. See you guys soon.
Thank you.
Bye for now.